Come on. Hello, everyone. This is Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, I have with me, and I know when you guys see the green, you already know it's an interview. Like there's no big. But I have with me Lauren Steiner from Robust Opposition. She's been on this. You have been, if I am not mistaken, maybe one of my most, coming back guests. I think you've been here maybe the most. The one potential other person, but I think you've been here like 3 times at this point.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me back. I always enjoy talking to you.
Absolutely. And I always enjoy having you here. I always say you're a pit bull when you're going after these people. I think the first interview I saw was of you going after Jake Uger, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is awesome. That was from that point on.
Well, I think I do it in a polite way. You should have heard me go after Dolores Huerta. I made a video of that asking her why she endorsed Kamala Harris. And I went in really easy for the kill. It was at the International Women's Solidarity March. And she was speaking. So obviously the first question was a softball question. Why are you here today? And then she answered. And then I said, oh, I'm just curious as to why you endorse Kamala Harris, considering she has prosecuted more Black men for blah, blah, blah. And I went into the whole litany of her thing, but just in the most polite, respectful way. And to hear her try to justify, I mean, what she essentially said is, what I learned, Lauren, is that it is the job of the prosecutor, the district attorney, and the attorney general to represent the cops. She actually said that, and that is not true. She's supposed to represent the people.
That's an amazing distinction. I mean, but that is a significant one, right?
Yeah.
It's like, who are you doing your job for? Well, we got to protect the cops.
Yeah.
Like, what about the justice of the individuals involved in the political process? That then, by the way, to make that point that much more clear, any human being, any regular person that gets popped for anything is at a complete disadvantage. It is that individual versus the state. And not just that individual versus the state. You have a situation where you may have somebody who has tons of cash, in which case they can buy prosecutors and everything else. Buy lawyers and everything else. But the average person, the average person that's making like $30,000 a year can't defend themselves in this way. You know what I mean? Like the notion that your job is to protect the people with the authority in this situation is astonishing. I mean, that's a severe problem in regards to her duty.
Well, while you were away, I also did a protest at her fundraiser. She had a very big high-dollar fundraiser at the president of Universal Studios. And it's interesting to note that Universal Studios owns MSNBC, along with Comcast, right? Well, Comcast owns Universal Studios, who owns NBC. And Jeff Shell, it was at his house in Beverly Hills, and I kept counting the Teslas. I'm like, oh, that's the 5th Tesla that's come in. And oh, hi, John Davis, major producer, and what we did was we handed out flyers. So we didn't come at first with the megaphone or the signs. We handed out flyers of her record on both prosecutions and foreclosures. Like she made this big deal about this $18 billion settlement she got for the homeowners. Very little got to the homeowners, as it turned out. And my friend Carlos Marroquin from Occupy Fights Foreclosures actually had to protest her at the California Democratic Party convention because she refused to meet with homeowners who were fraudulently foreclosed on when she was the attorney general. And it's really funny because my friend Pat Harris, who ran for Senate against Dianne Feinstein, he's an attorney, very famous attorney, and he knows a lot of people in the DA's office. And he said she was never there because as soon as she got elected to attorney general, she started her campaign for Senate. So she is extremely ambitious, and it's all about the next office. And I'm just so happy to see that she's really not doing very well in the national polls.
Yeah, no traction. She has little to no traction at all. I mean, she's turning out to be a Jeb Bush of sorts, this unicorn that they keep thinking that they're going to get into office. I don't see I even thought that she had one of the strongest potential campaigns because I thought, are people really going to care about policy per se? And it seems that people are taken in, you say whatever. And people just, eat it up, particularly in the Democratic Party. That seems to be more identity-based. So it's like, oh, she's a woman. She's Blackish of sorts. We like her. Let's run with it. And you get to this thing, but what is she for? What is she for? Why doesn't that matter the most? I thought she had a good chance.
what she's for is really the opposite of what she has been. See, she's pretending to be against mass incarceration when she was one of the biggest perpetrators of mass incarceration. And, the fact that she laughed about, jailing mothers of truants.
Right there. I was sitting here thinking truancy, her laughing at the truancy thing. Like, it's a disturbing video to watch.
Yeah, yeah. So, however, I think she's going to do pretty well in California. So, she's coming out here again this weekend for an appearance at I think it's a local community college or state university. And I sent it to Carlos and I sent it to Melina Abdullah from Black Lives Matter. And I said, you protest her this time. I'm not doing it again. I always feel so compelled when a big figure comes to town, like during the Obama administration or when Hillary was running for office, to protest them over some issue that I've been working on. Because I know that's the only time the mainstream media is going to cover the issue.
Yeah.
They're not going to cover the TPP or net neutrality or justice for Palestinians, but they will cover if one of those national figures comes to town. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate because you're absolutely right. Like, the big issues, particularly around issues of policy, and policy that's going to set the policy that we're all going to be governed under. And that seems to matter less than this kind of dog race of the individuals involved. And you can even see it on YouTube. Like, there are channels, I'm not going to name any names, that will get a ton of views just from, it's like you hit this guy and people love it. You talk about a war in Iran, you know what I mean? That's such a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Like, this notion of something that took place where millions of people died matters less than this kind of a dog race. Or this notion of this guy's in a feud with that guy. That, it's an odd thing.
Well, and then actually people like Pete Buttigieg, who is against talking about policy. He actually made a statement that he didn't think policy was important. And it's all about the tone and the values or some other BS crap.
He's being honest. No, see, people hit him for that. And I hit him for that too. But he's being honest. Like, because think about what he's saying. He's essentially saying, look, they don't really care about this other policy stuff. I'm going to lead with my values, which nobody knows what that means. And I'm going to...
Tom Perez says that too, right?
He does. Tom Perez says that. I'm going to lead with my values. That way I don't have to really talk about policy.
So he's perfect. He's perfect. No wonder the DNC is pumping him up. It's like anybody but Bernie. I mean, that's what's so sad is what they're going through. I mean, that CNN article going over Bernie's entire history from the 80s and going to Russia and going to Nicaragua and all the things that he stood for. And of course, I'm reading the article and you're probably reading the article thinking, way to go, Bernie. What a badass. We want that Bernie back. But we know that even though everything was in there that was in there is factual, the only reason they're posting it is, it's like a dog whistle, socialist.
CNN lost respect for me on this. They set the tone right off the bat, doing a poll where the only people that they didn't include into the poll were people under 50.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like the polling, the sampling size of the polling, kids were left out of this per se. I mean, there might have been a few, but it was so few that it was like statistical noise. And then they ran with that, pretending as if this poll showed Biden ahead by 1,000%. And you look at the poll, I was like, I have to see this poll. There's no way that Biden is ahead like this. And you look at the footnotes in this thing, and it is, the sampling size is like 50 and over. Now,
yeah, but guess what happened today? And I posted this on my Facebook page. I don't know if you can go to my Facebook page and scroll down, but Maddie Iglesias posted something, and I think he's with Vox. I'm not sure. The Pennsylvania, a new Quinnipiac poll from Pennsylvania that showed Biden miles ahead. And he actually had a tweet that he deleted because it was false. And it said, also from this Pennsylvania poll, Biden has an enormous lead among voters under 50 and an even more enormous lead among voters over 50, which seems like good news for Joe Biden. And it actually showed Biden with 52% of the vote, 18 to 49, and Sanders only 12. But if you actually look at the real poll, and this is why he deleted it. I don't know if you're showing this right now because I'm looking at my own page.
Well, I'm looking at your Facebook page, but I don't see it on your Facebook page.
You got to scroll down. You got to scroll down a little bit. The real poll.
Oh, here we are. Here we are. Here we are. Let's flip this. Let's flip this.
I got two pictures. The one that he posted, and then the real poll, which shows Biden with 29% and Sanders with 27%. So I don't know where he got that first set of figures, but it was wrong, and he deleted it. But of course, he didn't put up a new, tweet saying, "Oh, my tweet this morning was erroneous." So anybody that had seen it was going to be walking around thinking and repeating that Biden was ahead. So this is, of course, they had to get this out because we all know that the polls they've been talking about did not sample anybody under 50. So, of course, they have to get this one out. But my comment about this one, can you go to the next picture, because this is the wrong poll. Yeah, okay. This is the right poll.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, this is the right one. Okay. So my comment about that is they were talking about registered Democrats, and of course we know that Bernie appeals to a lot of independents.
I see.
Yeah,
but see, again, that stuff gets left out of the conversation, which is the problem, right? Like, if we were having the next election that's going to take place is going to have a sampling size of kids, let's say from 18 to 30, something like that. That is expected to be more than any other election. You know what I mean? So this is going to be an election where more kids potentially outstrike the elderly, the geriatric. How on earth will you know that's going to take place?
Okay,
like from
the word geriatric, because I just turned 61 and
well, you don't look
I'm almost a senior citizen, and I don't like that word geriatric.
I'm sorry.
Somebody popping Tums and walking around with a, colostomy bag or something.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm just trying to make this point that if like we know, like from every honest broker in this can at least say yes, there will be more kids voting in this election potentially than adults for the first time in any other election. If you know that, if that sets contextual worldview when you're setting up your polling, right? I mean, if you're polling and you're leaving out the demographic that's going to outstrike the other demographic, how do you look at that and call that a real poll? That just seems amazing. And then to turn around later and then try to put another poll out. I guess my point is this: it kills your reputation for anything else going forward. How can I trust you in this case? Yeah. The lefties are saying that you guys you don't treat him fairly, and here you have a poll showing exactly that.
Right. And then where he got this false screenshot from? I mean, may have been, I don't know. I mean, could it have been photoshopped? I have no idea.
That's even worse. Because you're right. Because if we just so people can see what we mean. Because I'm sitting here looking at it, and I realize no one else sees this. So, come on. All right, this, and present to everybody. All right. So.
This is the first poll.
This is the first one. Biden, 52% from 18 to 49. That's an amazing thing. All right. And Sanders, only 12%. Sanders is getting crushed based on this by 40 points. Then you go to the real one, and you have Biden, 29%. That's the honest figure.
Yeah.
With Sanders, 27%. And like you said, this was only for registered Democrats, which Sanders is going to crush with independents.
Yeah.
So the question that you just asked is the operative question. Where the hell did this come from?
Yeah.
Did he Photoshop that? That's an amazing thing. That's an amazing question. Where did he get this from?
Because it's the same layout, the same font, the same color as the real poll.
Yeah. If you didn't know any better, you would have thought this was literally the exact poll. And you might have even been tricked into putting it up because it looked like a legit.
Yeah. And you know how I knew he deleted it? Because I tried to reply to it, and they said you can't reply to a deleted, tweet. So then I decided I better go look at the original poll, which he had posted. And when I looked at the original poll, I found this. And that's when I knew why he, deleted it.
Amazing.
But still, no correction, no retraction, like, so mainstream media, so typical. And now, of course, it's just Biden. And it's very concerning to me because they have now, it's like they threw out everybody and his uncle. to try to find somebody to take on Bernie. And nobody was getting it. And then Biden comes in. And, I'm very suspicious about Lucy Flores. And I'm not going to get into all my reasons right now because I'm waiting for her to actually run for office before I reveal what I know about her. But I was very suspicious of her being the one to accuse Joe Biden because of what I know about her. It seemed to me that she might have been throwing that out there in advance of his announcing as a trial balloon to see how it was going to resonate with the American public. Mm-hmm. And then when it became sort of a big nothing burger and became yesterday's news, then it was okay. Or he was able to deal with it in advance and then he was announced. And then, he made those two jokes when he announced, and he had his hand on some boy's arm or something. And he said, "Oh, he gave me permission to do that."
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't think it's funny. That creepy behavior that Joe Biden.
Yeah, he's joking about his creepy behavior. And then the thing with Anita Hill, how he doesn't really apologize. I mean, until like right before he runs. It's been 25 years and he waits till right before he runs.
But see, go ahead. I'm sorry.
None of this stuff is sticking. And from what I'm gathering, the reason is electability. They're doing that same thing again, where they're saying he's tough enough. He's the only one that can beat Trump. He's tried and true. And the more they keep putting that message out, it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when I say self-fulfilling, I mean, it'll self-fulfill only until he gets the nomination. And then, the nomination by the party, and then Trump is going to crush him because he's not Bernie. He's just another Hillary. He's just another Obama. He's just another corporate neoliberal shill.
He is a male Clinton. I mean, honestly, is there a bit of daylight between the two? I mean, with maybe the exception that Joe Biden is against abortion. I mean, and even on that issue, you can make a case this is, Hillary's support. Well, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say her support is contingent upon, but that could be a party issue. But you get my point. Like, there's not that much daylight between them two. And maybe the Democratic Party looks at it as, well, we ran this once, but we ran it once with a conceptual idea of Trump, not necessarily Trump in office. But I got to be honest, I think they would be dramatically, I don't think that's the rail they want to hit again. Like, there's nothing around the world that has fundamentally changed in the sense where corporate parties or corporate Democrats have started to take power. They have not. There might have been a fluke here or there, but the United States politics is going in line with the politics around the rest of the world. I will say this. This is kind of why I appreciate Buttigieg saying, I'm just going to leave with my values, man. I'm not going to talk about policy. Because that's honest. If you look back at many of the other candidates, that's how Democrats run. I mean, like the thing that they hit Hillary Clinton on was because she kept using, euphemisms and all this other stuff. These kind of non-policy or not specific per se on policy. More so, it's Hillary Clinton. You just kind of have to trust the fact that it's Hillary Clinton. This is the message for Joe Biden. I remember Donna Brazile said, "Oh, everybody knows who Joe Biden is." Like that's like waving away Bernie Sanders' complaints by, "Oh, everybody knows who Biden is." But that's kind of the problem. And I think that's going to be, I've said before, and I stand by it, I think Joe Biden is a weak candidate. I think his strength is only name recognition.
Yeah.
But he's going to be stuck in a primary that is decidedly to the left of him. Like, so understand the terrain that he's in. This would be like a Republican trying to get elected in California. Like, it is not easy terrain. The only difference here is that people know him as Joe Biden. Gaffe machine, Obama's vice president, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not knowing him. I hope I'm making that distinction. Like this notion of name recognition where the people have a feel that they know the candidate. So Joe Biden can kind of lay on, I'm not going to talk about policy right now, man. I'm going to take the middle approach to climate. And people are okay with this. But are they going to be okay with it on a debate stage? Are they going to be okay with it in one debate after the next, after the next, after the next? Last point. DNC is an untrustworthy actor in this process, and they should be regarded as such. By the same token, of course, they were going to bring a secondary candidate to challenge Sanders from the corporate side. That absolutely was going to happen. And my assumption was that was going to be Joe Biden from the beginning. But by the same token, my assumption also Joe Biden was a weaker candidate than they're giving him credit for. The markets, many of the people who were putting money in their pockets, the news was being reported that Joe Biden couldn't get money from these people because they didn't think he was going to last. He's flamed out 3 other times. If for whatever reason people are bringing up a 3-time loser to take on Trump.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I'm very pleased the way Bernie is campaigning this year. He's essentially doing, and I don't want to give myself any credit because, they never listened to me back in 2016. Any senior advisor that I was ever able to talk to in the Sanders campaign, I kept saying, do not try to get likely Democratic voters. They're going to go with Hillary. You need to get independents. You need to get non-voters. They already knew they had the young people. But the fourth thing that I said was go for the issue activists, because those are the ones that are passionate. Those are the ones that have constituencies. Those are the ones that have people out in the field. I remember when Bernie came out here, I was asked to put together 200 volunteers. I was given 5 days notice by Andrew Verdon, who was on his advanced team. And I had started LA for Bernie in June of 2015. This was August of 2015. It was his big rally at the sports arena. He gave me 5 days to get 200 volunteers and like 12 super volunteers, which I did do mostly. I got about 150 and the campaign website got the rest. But I told Phil Fioramonti, who is his field director, who quit after a few months for personal reasons, but he was a person who's been with Bernie for decades. I said, is there anything that we need to do, anything else that I can do to help you? And he says, no, that's great. You did a great job. And I said, well, let me mention something to you. The Organic Consumers Association has told me that they've got 3 million members nationwide, and they will caucus for Bernie if all he has to do is speak out against the DARK Act. And the DARK Act, or the new DARK Act, was the one that was going to kill GMO labeling.
Oh, right.
And I said to Bernie, I said to Phil, if he could just add a line in his speech about that. And he says, oh, Bernie's really good on this issue. Everybody knows he's good about GMOs. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he's not good on it. I'm asking you if you could add, nobody can tell Bernie what to say, writes his own speech. It was just so dismissive and so minimizing of some really valuable help that I was trying to give him.
Yeah.
Now, this time around, you see Bernie is all about the issues.
Yes.
In Iowa, he campaigned with the factory farmers, the small family farmers who have being iced out by these large factory farms. And he came out with this wonderful policy against finally enforcing the antitrust laws against these big monopolies and trying to get back. I don't know if it's possible to put the genie back in the bottle. It's kind of like, are we going to get manufacturing jobs again in this country? I don't think so. But he's now trying to do what he can for the small family farmers. And don't think that all those people aren't going to be grateful to him, aren't going to caucus for him, aren't going to get their friends to vote for him. South Carolina, where he's doing really poorly. The latest poll shows Biden with like 86% support, something like that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
In South Carolina, it was crazy. And so Bernie is going and meeting with some group that is being, I think it's an environmental justice issue, some group in South Carolina that is being poisoned by some fossil fuel project. I mean, don't quote me on that. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the comments. But I just remember seeing it today. And I texted with Nina Turner to see, because I was thinking I was going to go to DC and stand with the Embassy Protection Collective. And I wanted to meet up with Nina and with the new campaign manager. And she said, oh, we're starting our Southern tour at the end of this week. So, that's when I read about the thing in South Carolina. And I think he's going to be very smart if he avoids like these Democratic clubs and these older people and kind of goes with the colleges and with the issue activists and tries to get the non-voter. The other thing that I encourage them to do is go after poor people, because there's no candidate that gives a shit about poor people, because as Bernie even said when he was interviewed, some snarky interviewer, I think it was on CNN, said to him, oh, if your biggest issue is income inequality, how come in the states, in 5 of the 6 states where income inequality is, the greatest, Hillary won? And Bernie answered, correctly, because poor people don't vote.
Yeah.
So my thing when I was talking to the TV, as I so often did during that campaign, I'm saying, Bernie, you never asked him to,
Yeah.
You got to
Oh, man, that's a good point. I think
go to
sometimes,
places where poor people are. Like we had a thing at LA for Bernie. It was called the Low Income Outreach Program. And we went to Targets and 99-cent stores and employment offices and check cashing places. And that's where we went to try to say, look, there is somebody who cares about you. And here's what he's done over his lifetime of work.
yes, and that's absolutely true. And I think sometimes, I give you an example, the reparations thing, where there are certain assumptions that I think Sanders operates on that I think he needs to enunciate. And I think this kind of gets to where you're saying. This notion that it's like, look, man, I am trying to expand Social Security. I'm trying to increase the minimum wage. I'm trying to make sure everybody has health care. And these issues of Social Security, healthcare, college education, that's money that he's trying to keep in your pocket. So there are some things that, it's like I'm trying to increase your wages and I'm trying to increase the amount of money that you have in your pocket so livable wage is higher. The report came out recently, I think it was a few days ago, Richard Wolff tweeted it out, showing that real wages went down. Real wages went down. These guys are screaming at the height of their lungs about how awesome the economy is. Real wages went down. I think he thinks sometimes that people should just know that. And I think that's a wrong assumption. I think there's something to be said, like you said, to talk to that issue, to be at Walmart, be at Target, be at Dollar Tree, be at those stores. Like, if you're talking about a campaign, an insurgent campaign, those are your warriors of sorts. Also, one last point, Bernie Sanders is a politician. I know people like to think he's apolitical. Bernie Sanders is not. Bernie Sanders is extraordinarily political. He's just better at it, better at hiding it. Let's say it that way. When he's part of the reason, I think the rationale or the difference here between the last one and this one is Sanders believes he can win, at which point you have a campaign that's trying every avenue to win. And part of those avenues is, we're going to have to reach out to the South. And yes, we're going to have to talk about those specific issues because, like you said, those are the people who go and vote. I'm going to talk about the farming thing. Donald Trump is passing tariffs that is essentially brutalizing the farmers in those areas because of the retaliatory tariffs. Now, Trump has come out saying, okay, I'm going to rescue the farmers. Democrats are not going to let him rescue the farmers because it is not in their best interest to do so. Sanders is going to scream at the height of his lungs, look at what Trump is doing to these farmers. And I, Bernie Sanders, I'm going to do stuff to try to help you guys out. This is a play for the areas that Donald Trump won by. Like, let's be very clear. Like, if we're looking at this as a war zone and we're looking at this kind of as a game board in regards to the areas that you need to take, this is a broad stroke across Trump's area, which is why Trump is screaming about a New Deal for farmers or something. Like, he's an extraordinary political and he's good at it. I think the last time around, though, it's the difference between somebody who assumed I'm going to lose and I don't want to damage Hillary to this is mine to win.
Right.
Those are different animals.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I know we're going to talk about Venezuela in a little, but I've been on Tulsi's case and she came out here for 2 events in a row.
Yes, let's go to that. So we're Tulsi Gabbard. Might as well, deal with the candidates because we want to talk about Tulsi Gabbard and Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
So Tulsi, I like her. Now, how do I understand people may have issues with it, but you say you've been on a case. And I agree with you. I saw the clip that the guy put up. I think, in fact, I even saw it under your video where they asked him, if they cheat you again, are you going to stand for us and be our voice? And I know there were a lot of people, myself included, that wasn't all that happy with that answer.
Well, because you see, the woman, Jane Albrecht from the Democratic Club, she was the president of the Malibu Democratic Club, and she comes from a very establishment background. She worked in Washington. She worked for the International Trade Association. She works for the Motion Picture Association. She's an attorney, so she sort of does lobbying. And, now that she's president of this Dem Club, it's all about unity, unity, unity. So
I saw that. Yeah.
She didn't really grab the mic from him. He got to say his whole question. He just started to elaborate. And then she took the mic and said, let me add to that question. What do you feel about unity? And please answer both of them. So Tulsi could have answered the first question,
yes,
the tough question, and she chose to answer the second question. So that was my issue with her there. And then I asked her a question about would she go to Venezuela to speak in favor of the embassy protection. And for those viewers of yours who don't know what's going on, there have been people in the Venezuelan embassy for 36 days now. When Trump expelled their ambassadors because he recognized Guaido as the president, and he's trying to foment a coup d'etat in Venezuela with his, Secretary of State Pompeo, who used to be head of the CIA, with John Bolton, famous neocon from the Bush administration, is an NSA advisor, and with Elliot Abrams, who was famous in the 80s for destabilizing all the Latin American governments. He's a special envoy to Venezuela. So we couldn't have the worst three guys in those positions. But they're trying to, they've imposed sanctions, they've imposed a trade embargo, they're trying to pressure all of our trading partners to have trade embargoes. They've convinced London to freeze $1 billion worth of gold that belongs to Venezuela. They've illegally frozen the assets of Citgo, which is the U.S. subsidiary of the Venezuelan oil company, all in the effort to try to make it so untenable for the people that they will rise up. And last week, Guaido was out there and he said that the military's coming over to his side. Of course, that was
it was nonsense. Yeah, utter nonsense.
And the people are supporting Guaido. Even the people that don't like Maduro do not think that what the U.S. is doing is proper. But he did expel the ambassadors. So a group from Code Pink, popularresistance.org, and the Answer Coalition moved into the embassy with the permission of the ambassador. They were handed the keys as they left, and they've been holding down the fort for over a month. Well, about 2 weeks ago, the opposition forces came, and they erected canopies and tents right in front of the embassy. When our people tried to erect one canopy and tent, they tore it down, and the police have been selectively enforcing the law. They've been letting the thugs who are supporting the opposition verbally and physically harass the protectors. And in fact, they've been flashing strobe lights in their eyes. They've been sounding noisemakers in their ears. It reminded me of Abu Ghraib, quite frankly. They're like torturing these protesters, and they prevented them from getting food and water. And then they cut off the power. The State Department told them to cut off the power. And then the opposition did something to stop the water.
Yeah.
So they're in there trying to starve them out in the same way they're trying to do. It's like a microcosm of what they're trying to do in Venezuela.
Now, just for a quick interruption, some of them left.
Yes.
So I saw Pampril leave, but they closed the doors with the other protectors back in there.
Right. So this all happened 2 days ago because they've limited number of food and they're not allowing them to get food up there. In fact, they arrested people from Code Pink, Ariel Gold, who was trying to throw, food up there. And the charge was throwing missiles, which
That's amazing.
As press, I got, Medea was asking the guys, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? They said, call the press office, call the press office. So I called the press office and I said, or actually I wrote him an email and I said, I'm with the robust opposition and I'd like to know what the charges are. And they said throwing missiles and then in parentheses, objects. And they tackled this guy, Jerry Condon. He's the founder of Veterans for Peace. He's in his 70s. There's video of like 6 of these Secret Service agents tackling him to the ground, bloodying his nose, all because he was throwing a cucumber. Now, why he was throwing a cucumber, I don't know. Cucumbers have like 0 calories, but he was throwing a cucumber. And they tackled him to the ground, they arrested him, and yet these thugs are getting away with murder. So that's why some people voluntarily left 2 days ago. And then what I had Medea Benjamin on my show last night, and I'll put the link to my show in your comments, but she explained what happened. Anna Hilliard, who is a Verhaden Hilliard, Mara Verhaden Hilliard, who is their lawyer, spoke to the people from the State Department. They put up this phony notice that had no signature, no seal, no letterhead, just basically saying you have to leave, you're trespassing. And Medea is like going around asking these cops, this is very strange. This has no signature. This has no, who authorized this? And so the cop goes, well, you saw the guy from the State Department posted on the wall. Anyway, the lawyer goes and she says, this is illegal. This violates international law. It violates the Vienna Convention.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you may think you're lawfully obeying an order, but if you disobey law, international law, you can still be prosecuted, even if you thought. So she kind of scared the shit out of these people.
See, I would make a secondary argument. I've argued, and there is no such thing as international law.
There is.
Show it to me. Show me that there is a such thing as international law. Those cops were breaking the law. Those cops will face no persecution from that. The United States goes into a country, destroys that country. In fact, what's taking place right now with Venezuela and with Iran are both breaches of international law. You have a country that is threatening a country for political concessions. That's against the law. Like, that's literally a predatory nation. There would be no consequences for that at all, I guarantee you. Like, you can go down the list of things. The coups that took place, at the very least, those had, this kind of air of secrecy associated with it. There is no secrecy associated with any of this. I
think what you mean to say is there is international law. It's just that nobody enforces it.
But is it a law if nobody enforces it? Like, if they put a law in the books that says sniffing cocaine is illegal, and in front of the cops, 10 people are sniffing cocaine, and the cops aren't doing anything, is it illegal? Like, I guess I understand what you're saying. You're saying there's a technicality of standards that countries are supposed to pay attention to. But fact of the matter is, the reality is, nobody pays attention to those standards, with the exception of some kind of podunk African nation that could be prosecuted. If you're talking about real countries, I would argue that selective justice is not justice. And if there are laws that bigger countries or Western countries can flaunt, just ignore outright, then how is it law?
You're basically doing the old philosophical argument: if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound?
No, that's a different argument. I mean, that argument of the sound argument boils down to more so, does a sound mean something hearing it? It's kind of like the quantum mechanics thing. If I don't pay attention to my house and if nobody's looking at it, is my house there? From a quantum mechanics standpoint, no. But if you look back at it, it is. From a human standpoint, yes. This gets a little different, though. This gets into this point of, if somebody put a law in the books, they put it on the books, they write it down somewhere, but it's ignored. It's completely ignored. Is it really a law? I mean, what is the philosophical reason for law? And if nobody pays attention to it, it's completely flouted. And not just flouted, flouted by powers.
Right.
Not other countries. Like, that makes it even worse.
Right.
But that's one rule for one, and, ignoring it for somebody else, which begs the question, is it really a rule at all? Is it just one country retaining dominance over another with this kind of, fig leaf of rules?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, look, they just had a UN resolution 2 days ago. 180 countries signed this resolution to address plastic pollution.
Yes.
The US didn't sign it, for 2 years. And I talked to Medea about this because she also is very concerned about Iran. And, the fact that they want to send 120,000 troops in Iran, and they're creating a false flag about these 4 ships supposedly being attacked. I mean, this is just the same old playbook that we've been playing by for, 100 years now.
Well, wait, that gets a little bit more complicated. So I thought that too. My first impression was, this is a false flag. This is nonsense. Like, why would media even report this straight? Like, if a news person from the United States comes on TV and says, we've been, our interests have been hit in the Gulf, and we think Iran did it. That guy's, lunacy. Why would you think that? You've just had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. In fact, I can do you one better. Obama's guy, the guy who was working the deal for Obama, comes out screaming false flag. So, now mind you, he helped write the deal, so he's a little sensitive. But the fact that this guy's coming out screaming that. Now, here's the catch. The Houthi rebels have come out saying, we did it. Oh, now, if this is a false flag, why the hell are they screaming we did it? And not just that, I'm watching this guy say we did it. And I'm like, oh, you stupid idiot. Why? Like, because it's one thing for you. Don't claim responsibility for that. Like, I don't care if you did it. Don't claim responsibility, because now I'm stuck with a situation of like, fucking Houthi rebels. Now, the Houthi rebels.
Right, but the Houthi rebels, here's the thing. They're trying to
not necessarily
align with Iran.
Right, but that doesn't matter. That's my point. That doesn't matter. And even though they may not necessarily be completely tethered to Iran, it doesn't necessarily mean that Iran, look, we're in a tit for tat game. And not just tit for tat in an asymmetrical way. That this notion that the United States can attack Iran without any kind of repercussions. That needs, when the United States is doing this with China, they have somewhat of a symmetrical relationship. So there's a straightforward one-to-one with China trying to hit back in this regard. So they do it with tariffs. But Iran can't do that. Like, Iran is in this odd situation where they can continuously be hit and can't respond. Any response at this point has to be asymmetrical. This is why I say it's a little bit more complicated, I think.
Well, here's what
they are looking for pretexts. So don't misunderstand me. And they would initiate a pretext if they didn't get one. So again, don't misunderstand me. And the Houthis are not necessarily tethered to Iran. They blame Iran for everything, regardless of who does it. Yeah. So, this gets murky. Well, I gotta be honest though. If it was me, I would do it.
You would do what? I
would do exactly what they did. If I was Iran and I had any alliance at all with the Houthi rebels, I would do the exact same thing. Because it's I know this sounds weird, but they can't really tether that to you. Like the fact, like it's a proxy in this case. They can't associate that with you. They can complain, they can imply, they can do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, they can't make a link between those two things. So even if Houthi rebels comes out and does it, Iran takes no responsibility for it. In fact, they can come around and say, we condemn the action that these guys have taken on their behalf. This is politics on a scale between asymmetric powers, where one power is a superpower and has all of these creatures in a region that are kind of patsy nations that assist with this, be it Israel or be it Saudi Arabia. And you have Iran that's by itself to some degree. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like
the ones that we're aligned with right now, really, Israel, Saudi Arabia, they really want us to take out.
Yes.
And that's who Trump is listening to. Now, the good thing about Venezuela is when this Guaido thing, when he wasn't able to effectuate his coup last week, you saw that Trump tweeted that he was pissed at, I don't think he used the word pissed, but he tweeted his dissatisfaction with Pompeo. Because Pompeo obviously led him to believe that this coup was going to be welcomed with open arms. It was like the Day of Pigs, which I studied when I was in college. I mean, we went over there and, I'm just waiting for them to try the exploding cigars against Maduro that the CIA tried against Fidel Castro, and poisoning his mojitos or whatever. But this is such Bush League behavior. But to take it back to Tulsi, okay, we have these embassy protectors, several of whom are my personal friends. I've been organizing with Medea on anti-war stuff and with Kevin and Margaret against the TPP and for single payer and for net neutrality. These are people that I've been known and organized with. So the fact that they're taking this stand, this is probably the biggest stand they've ever taken, and I'm watching what's going on every day and trying to shine light on it with my little show. And also to, when I have an opportunity to drive to Malibu, which on Mother's Day was a big mistake because the traffic getting back on PCH was a parking lot. It was going 5 miles an hour for an hour and a half. I thought I was going to go crazy, but I went all the way there because I wanted to confront her on this in a nice way. And I started out with my question, and I can post the video I edited about.
I didn't see that. I haven't seen that video.
Yeah, I actually made a live stream when I was driving to distract myself from the traffic. And I was just basically saying, I'm talking to Tulsi because I was educating people about what was going on in Venezuela. I'm going to ask her because she's so, she's the only one who's talking about regime change. Mike Gravel is too, but
I like Gravel. I like him.
He's got these teenagers running his Twitter account. He doesn't even know what they're tweeting out half the time.
It's awesome. But the wild part is there's nothing that they're going to tweet out that Gravel, that goes further to the left in Gravel. Like, Gravel has been saying this stuff for like 20, 30 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed Daniel Ellsberg on my show last month, and
Did
it was
you?
a great interview. It went for 2 hours because he gives like half-hour answers to questions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like after the first question, I'm like, oh, this thing has gone off the rails because he's remembering all this stuff that's happening, and it's all great stuff. So I don't want to interrupt him, but it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to get to all these questions. But he reminded me of how it was Mike Gravel who read, the Pentagon
Pentagon Papers. It was.
congressional record.
They read it into the record. They can't ding you for it if you read into the record. That's right.
Yeah, and the best documentary, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen is called A Most Dangerous Man, because that's what the biography, not the whole biography, but just of this period of Daniel Ellsberg's life was called The Most Dangerous Man, because most dangerous man in America, because that's what Henry Kissinger called him. Wow. So I think you'd be really interested in my interview with him, which I edited into 2 parts, 2 one-hour videos. And I still have to go back and do another interview about nuclear stuff, because he wrote a book last year about nuclear stuff. And we're 2 minutes from midnight on the doomsday clock.
Yes.
But so Tulsi is the one who talks about this stuff. And I, said, I'm going to preface my question with saying I'm asking you because you and Gravel are probably the only 2 candidates that would say yes to this request. But would you go to the embassy and speak out on behalf of the protectors? They've cut the food. And of course, the same woman cut me off mid-question. I was trying to give some context.
Did she?
Yes, she did. And you can see that on my video. So she literally pulled the mic from me mid-question. And Tulsi's answer was not satisfactory. She said, in essence, I'm going to wait. I am in touch with people in the embassy, and I'm going to see how I can be most useful. And so I also said, would you go and stand with them and stop the selective enforcement of the law against them? And also, would you introduce a bill to end the sanctions? So that was going to be my question, if I was able to get it out in complete. And she said also that she has spoken about, against the sanctions. And she mentioned that it's killed thousands of people, 40,000 to be exact, the sanctions. And she would wait again to hear how she could be most helpful. And I did a commentary after that. I continued my stream and I went outside and I said, I just thought that was kind of weak, because she should just go there. I mean, what is she afraid of? And people said in the comments in my YouTube, well, she's already been branded an Assad apologist. She doesn't want to be a Maduro apologist. He's been called a brutal dictator. I'm surprised they didn't say he's gassing his own people. That's what they love to say about Assad. And, he's gassing his own people. No, but he's running over the protesters with tanks. That's about him.
Well, that's funny. That is a good point. It's like, well, she doesn't want to call Assad a Maduro apologist, like, but she's called an Assad apologist.
Right.
How much worse?
Yeah, I'm like, you're already going to be called that. What do you have to lose? And to go back to your point, she cannot win, in my opinion. And people get mad at me when I say she can't win, because they love her. They think she's so poor and everything. And they're like, they said that about Bernie. Well, when Bernie ran in 2016, he did not think he could win. He didn't even leave. He was still going to Washington doing his Senate duties. He wasn't even campaigning full time. Because he wanted to get the issues out there, because he knew that Hillary, was such a bad candidate. And similarly, I think that's the role that Tulsi plays. And quite frankly, I was actually mad at her for running, because I thought she was going to take votes away from Bernie.
That's interesting. Oh, we got to get into that. See, I thought the opposite. Like, because imagine a situation where Bernie Sanders is by himself on a stage with 7 other Democrats, all corporatists. Now, you could say, well, that makes him shine. That also crowds him out. Like, I don't want him being a radical on stage. I actually do want another voice, and I want somebody pushing him to the left. Like, I would go so far as to say, if Tulsi Gabbard wasn't chosen by Bernie Sanders to help her outrun, he was doing, he didn't do due diligence in it. And I know that sounds, Machiavellian of sorts, but think of what has been taking place with our revolution. The day that Bernie Sanders lost that last race, he started running in 2016, 2020. I don't believe in one iota that he wasn't sure whether he was going to run. The day that he lost that race, he got up thinking, all right, I need to start running. He created our revolution. Why? He wanted a think tank pushing out ideas to help crowd out the other markets. Like, if the only perspective of the world that you get are from corporatists and they're telling you Medicare for all sucks, that doesn't, you know what I mean? Even if you're right, it kind of creates a political problem. I honestly do believe that she's not a hindrance to him, part and parcel, because I don't think she can win. But I don't think that she's running to win. I think she's running for a different reason. This is kind of why I say if he didn't push her to run, then he should have. He's falling down on his duty.
Well, a lot of people think that there was an arrangement made and that she's running to get herself out there so that if he chooses her for vice president, for instance, it's sort of like a trial balloon to see how she would be for vice president.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would love to see him run with a woman of color. And I guess she's sort of color. She's Hawaiian. Yeah, I guess that's the color. You know, there's gradations of color.
Color-ish. Yeah. You're thinking black. You're thinking, I was around with a black woman.
Yeah, I mean, and then even Kamala Harris, like, okay, so there are 2 Bernie delegates who are African-American, Los Angelinos, friends of mine. And when Bernie came out here for his rally, I was sort of doing the pre-game coverage, the pre-game show or the pre-rally coverage. And I interviewed them. And unfortunately, my mic, you know, I always have mic issues. My mic was not working and the whole thing didn't come out. But they were basically making the case for why Bernie should choose Kamala. And when they were done with this,
God, why?
No, listen to this. Listen to this. When they were done making this case, I thought to myself, oh, I would hold my nose, but they had a point because she's going to get the identity politics people in. She's going to get the women people in, the black people in. She's going to get, you know, the establishment Democrats who have anointed her. I mean, you have to wonder if those establishment Democrats would then abandon her just because she went with Bernie, you know?
But let's be...
Like, as vice president, you can't really do that much damage, right?
That's true, unless the 80-something-year-old man who's in office, God forbid, eats it one day.
Yeah.
And President Kamala Harris takes office, and she appoints Hillary Clinton as her vice president. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. But you get my point. Do you really want Kamala Harris? Do you remember, she's not Sarah Palin, so don't misunderstand me, but the thing that the guy said, he says, this woman is a heartbeat away from the presidency, a heartbeat away from an 80-something-year-old man. It's like something like that. You're like, oh, like it puts it in stark terms of what they mean by that. Oh, God, no. Like, I feel you. Maybe.
I'm just saying, I think it's political. You said he's very political. It would be a very political move.
That's so extreme. That's like, God, that's extreme.
If it's not going to be him, it's going to be Biden. And I think Bernie should snap her up. I talked with Rich Pelletier on my show. He was the deputy campaign manager. I did a show.
You're pushing for this? You're pushing
No, listen to this. I talked with Rich Pelletier on my show in December. And I said he should run with a vice presidential candidate in mind. And Rich said, this was all pre-show. We didn't talk about this on the show because we were just having a conversation. I said, I think he should run with Nina. Rich agreed with me because, you know, Nina is a Black woman. She's a great speaker, but she's just not well known enough. And also she just isn't going to bring in, I don't think, the same constituencies. I mean, maybe she would.
I gotta be honest. I think, man, you know, this is so funny. I find myself, I always say I end up in the opposite scenario at every point in my life. It gives you kind of a rounded context of the world. It's a benefit in some respects and not so much in others. But in this case, God, this is our political bedfellows. So you have nowhere else to go argument. Like, is that the argument? Like Bernie Sanders is the primary choice. And the corporate Democrats are now in this. I give you a perfect example, Brexit. Nigel Farage. I don't know if you know who Nigel Farage is, if you follow British politics, but Nigel Farage is this kind of cartoon character of sorts, running around screaming that that Britain needs to leave the European Union. And he's been a part of the European Union elections for maybe 15 years. He's been there forever, screaming from the day that he got in, we're going to leave the European Union. We're going to leave the European Union. He was the guy leading the charge. And the day that Britain took that vote, he's back at the European Union for the first time. He gets to give his first speech after Britain leaves. And he's been on this campaign for like decades. And he chest stomps for like, let's say 3 minutes of him like, you know, just popping his chest like, oh, I told you we were going to leave. You're not laughing now, buddy. And then at the very end, he says, now, we shouldn't you shouldn't spite your nose to cut your face. Like he's making that argument after this chest thumping. Now, the reason I say this is because after all of this push to try to get Sanders and all of this, there's nowhere, there's nowhere to go argument is nonsense. You can't cater to that argument, et cetera, et cetera. And spending like a year making that case that that's not the argument that you should cater to. You need to stick to your principles. To now be on the opposite side of that are like, are you really going to let Trump win? Are you really going to not vote Sanders for Trump? He's ghastly. Like,
well, here's the thing. Some people think, I read something the other day, that maybe Kamala knows that now that she's stuck at 5% in the polls, that her best bet right now is vice president. And that's why she's speaking out more forcefully for Medicare for all and against private insurance. I think she's back again being against private insurance and some other policy that Bernie had. I forget what the second one was in the article.
When Jake Tapper asked her the other day, what do you mean by Medicare for all? Are you trying to get rid of private insurance?
No, that was the other day. That was a month ago already. That is such old news. I think she's back on it now because...
That's the problem. That's what I mean. Like the fact that she's a teeter-totter.
She sticks her finger in the wind to see which way it's going. And, she's positioning herself now. Just remember, this woman is not about ideology. I mean, in the sense that she just wants to win. She just wants to work her way up the political ladder. I mean, when I tweeted out that she slept with, Willie Brown, who was 31 years her senior, I was excoriated. I have never been the Twitter villain of the day, but that day I was, and it lasted for a week. I mean, 2 Bernie Sanders staffers condemned me. Yes. And it was
I backed you up on that tweet, by the way, because I didn't think you were wrong on that tweet. She did sleep with that guy, and she was trying to get political advantage.
She obviously wasn't physically attracted to him, and everybody called me a racist and a misogynist. I swear to God. And I had to go. I mean, thank God. Who was it that day? Tweeted Tom Brokaw tweeted that everybody should speak English. And then he supplanted me as the Twitter villain that Sunday. And I was like, oh my God, I've never been so happy for somebody to say such a boneheaded thing because it took me off the hot seat.
It's like you're saved by somebody's, it's not really racist. I don't know what that is, but whatever that is, you're saved by it.
They said it was just an allegation. I said, first of all, it could be applied to people of any race. It could be applied to people of any gender. And they said, well, how many times is it applied to white males? And whatever, it's just like, I eventually stopped arguing with them. And then I just got off Twitter for the week. But getting back to Tulsi, because that's who we were talking about, and this Venezuela thing. So I asked her this question. She gave this sort of milquetoast answer. And then I made a video about it. And, my friend, Viorella Isabella, who does the Convo Couch with Craig Pasta Jardula, they were covering her the next night in Santa Monica. So I said, make sure to ask her about it. And I just found out before you and I went on the air that she gave a press conference prior to her appearance at the Santa Monica Dem Club yesterday, basically saying that she was standing with the embassy protectors. So,
nice.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there was only one local mainstream media guy there, my friend Alex Michelson, who is now with Fox 11. And he was great during the Bernie campaign. He covered Bernie. He did a great interview. Bernie loved the interview he did with him. He covered some of my LA for Bernie events. So Alex was there to catch this. I don't know if he reported on it. He's notorious for having to have literally a minute and a half stories, and he can't really ever do any substance in a minute and a half. But she did do that. But today, and this is what I wanted you to show the video on, today, Jesse Jackson went and he successfully delivered the food. So if you want to show that 3.5 minute video.
He got it in.
Yes,
yeah, they weren't going to hit Jesse Jackson.
Yeah,
There's no way.
This is right. So why don't you show this? Because I got to get a glass of water while you're playing this video.
I would be shocked if Jesse Jackson got abused by Secret Service trying to deliver food. Man, that would have been mind-blowing. You can't hit Jesse Jackson like that. I don't think that works. All right, let's see Jesse Jackson.
I was just wondering if you could tell me why you're supporting the embassy protectors and whether you have anything to say about the food situation.
Diplomacy, both sides to take
Can you get the audio louder?
Let's see. He's talking so low. I don't think I can boost it anymore.
All right, we'll keep playing it because I boosted it up to the point where I could hear it.
I'll put it, let's see, let me increase it. All right, let's try one more time.
Just wondering if you could tell me why you're supporting
That's good.
protectors and whether you have anything to say about the food situation.
Because I care for person. More expensive and more spiritual. You're not starved, Venezuela to submission. It's aggressive diplomacy, bring both sides to the table, and with the help of the United Nations, figure out a conflict resolution short of violence. Right now, we're on a dangerous course in our hemisphere. More drums are beating, babies in the waters on the west side of Mexico, Texas, Yemen, Iran, Syria, Afghanistan. We must go another our foreign policy as far as our values. It does not make rational sense.
Wow, that is an amazing. What are you going to do? Hurl obscenities at Jesse Jackson? Oh, is he going to hit Jesse? Don't hit Jesse.
You brought this bag, please?
Wow.
Thank you. Jesse Jackson is calling us for food. This guy is trying to steal it from us. This is what they do.
No, we don't want to listen to you. You've been talking for a month.
That's enough.
No, let's go have some food.
This is amazing.
No authority.
We'll take the food here.
There is a guy trying to steal our food. Trying to
Yes, it is. Don't lie. Don't lie. Don't lie.
I need my phone.
Watch your glasses. Watch your glasses. Walk around.
I bring food to the people when they need the place. This is what they're doing. Jesse.
Wow.
All right. Get him. Give him to the police.
Arrest him.
Arrest him. Arrest this man. He just stole the food. Can you let go? Calm down. Can you let go? He's stealing right in front of the police. He's a thief right in front of the police.
Wow.
He's stealing right in front of the police.
They're not going to arrest him?
No.
He's attacking Jesse Jackson. What the hell, man?
He's trying to get the food.
Yeah, I know, but in lieu of that. They won it.
Yes! Thank you, Reverend Jackson, for helping us.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. And even a little disturbing, right? I mean, the guy is screaming at Jesse Jackson is like, don't help him, don't help him. And he doesn't know American history. But when Martin Luther King came out against the Vietnamese War, his reasoning for doing so was, how on earth am I gonna, push for African American issues here when the boot of the U.S. military, not to mention the war machine, not to mention the funding of it, is being spent killing people, brown people, in another part of the world? Why wouldn't Jesse Jackson take this perspective of, yes, we can't starve these guys into submission. It's not our responsibility to topple governments that we don't particularly like. I don't understand why that's an odd perspective to take. Not to mention, you're in California. California has a homeless crisis. If I'm not mistaken, the second largest in the country, I think New York or Washington State, but whatever. You guys are high up there. They're shanty towns. Do you know when I was in Egypt, we were in, I think it was Sharm el-Sheikh. And we go into one of the shops and the guy says, yeah, I used to go to California. And he says, there's so many homeless people. other part of the world. This guy's telling me about the homeless people in the United States.
Yeah.
And yet the United States believes that it perfectly okay to spend wealth, resources, putting hands or weapons in the hands of horrible people to destabilize a government that it doesn't like. And it's not just doing this in the United States, but I'm sorry, not just doing this in Venezuela, but also Iran, also in Syria, and with a death toll that's ranging in the tens of thousands.
Well, see, this is my point. This is my point about Tulsi Gabbard going there. She's going around the country. She said to Glenn Greenwald the other day that she thinks the most important job is commander-in-chief. Now, I would question that. I guess I'm more interested in domestic issues. But as I said in my video the other day, look, assuming you don't believe in modern monetary theory, which is where they say we have plenty of money for everything. It's just, our priorities. Assuming you don't believe in that and you think that we have to balance the budget, this is where all the money is going to defense. Yes. So if we didn't have defense, and it's not really defense, it should be called the Department of War.
That's what it used to be. Yeah, that was more honest.
Yeah, and we need a Department of Peace, like Dennis Kucinich was always proposing. But assuming that we didn't spend all this money, like look what China does. China hasn't spent anywhere near the money that we spent on their military, and they've been able to do a lot of improvements for the people. Now, it is an authoritarian government. They can do, industrialized policy, but so does Germany. Germany is a democracy, and yet they have industrial policy. I mean, that's how they were able to get their solar industry so big, because they subsidized it. We, on the other hand, subsidize the fossil fuel industry. So it's just a matter of, whether you're working for the corporations or whether you're working for the people. But back to Tulsi, if in fact, as she says, that we have to stop these regime change wars, what is Venezuela right now, if not a regime change coup? Yes, it's not a hot war yet, but it is a coup. And sanctions is what they call soft power.
Yes.
And we've already shown that, Mark Weisbrot and Jeffrey Sachs released a report a couple of weeks ago that showed 40,000 Venezuelans have died because of the sanctions. So she should be coming out against that. And she should also be coming out against the selective enforcement of the law against the protectors and in favor of the thugs, the opposition thugs. So there would have been two purposes for her to go there. And she went to Standing Rock. In my mind, this is just as important as Standing Rock.
Oh, that's interesting. But this is a little bit, Standing Rock is a little easier. I got to be honest, Standing Rock is easier because that's casted as the indigenous population being taken down by a corporate class out of, nobody likes oil companies per se. Oil companies like oil companies, but you know what I mean. That's a little bit easier.
It was poisoning the water, but what is poisoning the water? Poisoning the water, if you have poisoned water, you die. Well, if you shoot people, you die. So, I mean, it's the same thing. It ultimately comes down to, are you for protecting human life or are you for protecting corporate profits?
I agree with you. No, absolutely agree with you. I'm not debating.
Jesse, this is exactly what happened during the Bernie campaign when finally they got to California, and Arturo Carmona, who was his deputy political director and a friend of mine, basically was listening to me, and I said, let's do a rally up in Bakersfield, California with Bernie and the farmers and the people who are being impacted by the fracking going on up there. Because I knew that Dolores Huerta, who we talked about earlier, I knew that she was supporting Hillary, and I was nervous that she was going to get to that population first. Mm-hmm. So I came up with this idea. I started planning it. They gave me the go-ahead, and we got bogged down in bureaucratic details with the surrogate people, because I was trying to get Chicano Batman was a group that performed in Vegas, in Nevada. And they said, okay, if we get Chicano Batman, then we need to be in the Bakersfield State University. It's a bigger venue than Bakersfield Community College. So it got bogged down with trying to work with the surrogate department about freaking Chicano Batman.
Just so I'm clear, what is Chicano Batman? I don't know what that is.
Latino band that is very popular amongst the population, right? The Latino population. And that's who are the people we were trying to get, the farmers and the people who are impacted by the fracking up in Central California.
Okay.
So the next thing I know, guess who is coming out for a rally with Dolores Huerta on the exact same damn day? I remember the day. It was May 18th. I had it all planned. Was none other than Bill Clinton. So it's like, I saw it. I saw the strategic value of this so clearly, and then it was taken.
It was
And-
usurped. Bill
yeah,
Clinton also agreed with the strategic value.
and similarly, it could have been Tulsi today, if not Jesse Jackson, and she could have, and her campaign could have benefited from that. You know,
fair enough. I think lefties, and I'm in this batch too, so I'm not. It's sticking myself out of this. I think sometimes we have a perspective of the stuff that I don't know I don't know what the wider world looks like. Like, I don't know what the rest of America views this stuff. I want to say this, though. It's very possible that I look at Chelsea and said, I don't think she can win. But to me, that's important. You know what I mean? It's important to get her on the debate stage, and she may have a chance. You never know. Weird things happen. There's always a probability that's associated with it. But is it one of those things where she needs, in her mind, I can only go so far. And in going so far, I want to keep my brand intact. Now, your point would be, well, you're not going to win anyway, so what does it matter?
that is her brand.
That's her brand. That is her brand. That's the catch. I think that's your point. It's like, dude, that's her brand. That's what you do. And if you go there, look at all of the press who was there for Jesse Jackson. What does it mean for one of the presidential candidates to go? Now, don't get me wrong. She can make her argument and say, look, this has nothing to do with Maduro. This has everything to do with whether or not we want to engage into these regime change wars. She can use her catchphrase. She says it like 30 times in like a 2-minute span where she's, in these interviews. And she could say that to the press that's there. And she can frame it however she wants to frame it and attack Trump for it. I think I'm starting to agree with you on this. I think you're bringing me over to your side of this.
Yeah.
But there's a political value to this that goes beyond just the basic. They're trying to starve these people to death in this embassy to try to force their hand to get them out the embassy. The fact of the matter is the person who's trying to take over the embassy has no legal claim to Venezuela.
Right.
You know what I mean? Vecchio, or whatever his name is, the patsy or the stooge that the not president.
No, wait. Guaido is the not president.
Yeah, Guaido is not president, but is the
fake ambassador.
Right, the fake ambassador. That Bloomberg fake ambassador. But you get my point. Like, Guaido doesn't have really any legal authority to appoint an ambassador because he's not the prime minister or he's not the president of Venezuela.
Right.
Like, it's an odd thing that we've done. I mean, and Abby Martin gives a really good explanation of how, like, the internal politics that we oftentimes don't get any real knowledge of. Like the basics, we always get this thing of Maduro's a bad guy. He's a horrible dictator. The elections are fraudulent. The end. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Wait. Going to that. Who got elected? And then you say, well, wait a minute. The United States told the opposition to not get involved in the election.
They boycotted the election. It was a political stunt.
Yeah, but the amazing part is, it was already in the books. They had already made their plans that they were working with a superpower to topple the government. Anywhere else in the world, can you imagine the situation where Nancy Pelosi was working with the European Union in order to depose Donald Trump? And we had, let's say, 10 million people marching because they hated Trump. And Nancy Pelosi says, now that people hate Trump, I am now the interim president of America. It would be laughed at. In fact, she would be arrested for doing so.
Of course,
Guaido walking the streets of Venezuela, safest man on the planet.
Yeah, they're trying to say that there is something in the National Assembly that when some XYZ happens, then he can assume control. I don't even get involved in the details of it because it's not the point. The point is, and Medea keeps saying this all the time, we're not defending Maduro. What we're saying is this is not our business.
Yes.
And the
irony
for a country and a leadership on both parties who are saying that, not the Republicans are not saying that Trump colluded with Russia, but the Democrats are saying that Trump colluded with Russia. The mainstream corporate media, with the exception of Fox, is saying that Trump colluded with Russia to influence our election, while at the same time we are actively fomenting a coup d'etat in another country.
More than one.
Do they not see this? I mean, there's Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Donna Shalala, those two hacks from Florida, on the border of Colombia with that fake stunt that Richard Branson did the concert. But you know, the
humanitarian aid thing that Bernie Sanders came out saying Maduro must let humanitarian aid into the country from countries that are trying to topple the government of the country.
yeah, that was a boneheaded move on Bernie's part, I'll tell you, because
Yes,
that was another political stunt. And for Donna Shalala, who used to run Clinton's foundation, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who cooked the books in the DNC against Bernie, for them to be feigning any kind of moral outrage over the situation was just galling beyond belief. I mean,
yeah, it really is. It's yeah. I agree with you on this.
So do you want to just talk about this Elizabeth Warren thing before?
Yeah, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren. And so what do you think about Warren? Warren did this thing where she said she wasn't going to go on Fox. And she even sent the letter. Like she sent a nice letter. And I found it to be utterly absurd. Like I thought it was like, your job is to get votes. Are there no preachers in hell? And if there aren't, should there be? Like if you believe these people are so utterly detestable, or that Fox News or the audience is so utterly detestable that you don't want to get those votes, I find that to be absurd. You're going to need those votes. Those people vote.
Well, let me read what she wrote, because I have took issue with this myself. I love town halls. I've done more than 70 since January, and I'm glad to have a television audience be a part of them. Fox News has invited me to do a town hall, but I'm turning them down. Here's why. Fox News is a hate-for-profit racket that gives a megaphone to racists and conspiracists. It's designed to turn us against each other, risking life and death consequences to provide cover for the corruption that's rotting our government and hollowing out our middle class. Before I finish the tweet storm, she talking about
Conspiracy theories.
Other what and conspiracies. What does she think MSNBC and CNN do?
Yes, I was saying.
Right. Okay. So then she says, hate for profit only works if there's profit. So Fox News balances a mix of bigotry, racism, and outright lies with enough legit journalism to make the claim to advertisers that it's a reputable news outlet. It's all about dragging in ad money, big ad money. But Fox News is struggling as more and more advertisers pull out of their hate-filled space. The Democratic town hall gives Fox News sales team a way to tell potential sponsors that it's safe to buy ads on Fox. No harm to their brand and reputation.
Wait, just a quick interruption there.
I don't see that advertisers are pulling out of Fox News at all, because advertisers are just corporations that want that, audience. And they
don't see that either. And not just not pulling out. One town hall by Elizabeth Warren is not going to be the end or be all for Fox. Like, there's not going to be advertisers saying, well, because you had that town hall. That's nonsense. That makes no sense. Also, there's one more point to this. If she believes that this place is a hate-filled place that's putting it out, and I would agree with her to some degree, wouldn't that be more of a reason to be there? Like, that's not less of a reason, it's more of a reason. When you want your point of view, like I said, are there preachers in hell? Don't you want your point of view put to that particular audience? Sanders was able to go there and rock.
Yes, exactly. So, he did the town hall, and, it was so funny. I don't know if you got to watch that, but I watched it. And when they were asked,
amazing.
They were so confident that their audience was going to oppose Medicare for all that they put the question to the audience, and the audience loved Medicare for all. I mean,
this is kind of my point. Are there preachers in hell? Like, he goes to Fox News and he starts off adversarial because I think he thinks, like, I don't know what's going to take place here. Like, but despite the going back and forth with Brett Baer and everything else, they gave him a fair town hall. Yeah. Yes, it's coded in somewhat of a right-wing way, but he's on a right-wing channel. Your question is, can you and your ideology stand up to having questions like that? Because I guarantee you, MSNBC is not going to ask you all of the questions that the audience of America may have. And you may have some right-wing audiences that will never get the questions that they want answered on a question like MSNBC, on a network like MSNBC.
Right.
She should have went. Should she be able to, it's like, should you be able to hold up the questioning on a Fox News? Are you scared of Fox News?
She's running a very bad campaign. I want to tell you, she came out here. I covered, it was considered her California organizing rally. There was no organizing done at this rally whatsoever. I mean, first of all, when Bernie comes out here, he's got all these different groups that he brings up. When AOC came out here, we organized a day's worth of events for her. We walked her through Skid Row. We had a breakfast for activists. I made a video of it. We planned that visit for 2 weeks for AOC. we had the student activists, the Black Lives Matter activists, the housing activists, the healthcare activists, the money out of politics activists. It was like an amazing thing because she wanted to come to LA not to have fundraisers, but she wanted to meet the activists, which is
That's
what's
awesome.
so refreshing about her. And then she did a meeting, like it was a big town hall. And again, we picked a couple of very key issues that she allowed to share the stage with her. So now Elizabeth Warren could do that. No, she doesn't do that. She has her daughter and her grandchildren come out, which was all cute and everything. But she really missed an opportunity to bring in issue groups. And then they were like signing in people, but they had no plan. Like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
Like Bernie does his live stream and then he has his people, albeit they're terrible on camera and they're looking at the wrong camera, or the director is taking the video from the wrong camera. I never saw a live stream where the person's supposed to be talking to you and the whole time they're looking to the side. It was so poor.
They'll get better. They'll get better. You saw with the organizing the Sanders? My wife and I went to that in Richmond. And they even said, it was like, look, this has just started. We're not polished. And like you said, they were looking at the wrong camera.
She's Claire Sandberg. It's like this is her second go around, and she's still, you can tell they were both reading for the teleprompter, which is fine, but you have to at least practice it and pretend that you're, have some emotion in your voice. But anyway, but they were telling people what they wanted them to do. We want you to install this app. Now, granted, it's not a real app, and everybody has a lot of problems because they're calling it an app, and it's not an app. It's just a website.
Yeah.
People are also having problems like putting in all the personal information of every single friend, family, coworker, neighbor, which is what Bernie's asking people to do. Like put everybody into our database. I'm having some ethical problems with that, quite frankly. I think you have to determine if they want to be in the database.
I was going to say you should ask first. I don't want to be put in a Joe Biden database just because, some random person knows me. And it's like, Jamal would totally benefit from being in Kamala Harris's database. No, I won't. So I feel I agree with you.
See, that's
a good point.
Organizing rally would be. And she hired this guy, like her field director. I found out because I wanted to get in touch with them before I, went to this thing, which I covered. Mm-hmm. And you have to go?
No, you're fine. You're good. You're good.
Okay, so I wanted to go to this. I wanted to get in touch with this guy, Roger. I forget his last name. I looked him up. Sure enough, he was like Hillary's organizing director in the state of Georgia. So I called my friend Joe Traina, who is a Bernie super volunteer from Georgia. I said, "Do you know this guy?" And he says, "Yeah, he's a Hillbot." And I said, "Well, try to get me in touch with him because I want to, talk to him about the campaign. I want to find out, I'm covering the organizing meeting. I want to find out what the plans are." Never called me back. I sent him a Facebook message. Never called me back. The other thing was her emails. I wanted to stay on her email list just to see how her campaign was progressing. But after 6 months, I had to get off because every email is the same. We need money. We need money. We need money. They're not inspiring. They don't talk about policy. They don't talk about her latest bill. And she's got some great bills out there, as we know. But when you're writing an email, there's an art to writing an email. Before you ask for the money, you want to inspire someone, give them a reason to give, not that we're short. We're short. I mean, she says the same thing. We're not taking money from PACs. We're not taking money from super PACs. We're not taking money from corporations. We're not holding high dollar fundraisers. So give us money. And the amount she asked for is so tone deaf. She asked for $188.
$188.
I don't know. I don't know where that odd number comes from, but it's not a amount that an average person can afford to give.
That's such an odd amount. That's such a random amount. Like, when Sanders asked for 27, that 27 is just because that was the average donation that people were giving. Right. It was the other way around. It wasn't, give us $27 and just kind of just random brain fart. That's an odd thing. Also, Elizabeth Warren, yes, you're right. Elizabeth Warren does have some good bills and some good proposals, like the college loan thing, the wealth tax thing. I've never taken issue with Elizabeth Warren from the standpoint of domestic policy of sorts, or how can I say this? I'm always conflicted by her. Like, it's never, like with Sanders, it's a direct support. Even with Tulsi, it's somewhat of a direct support. With her, it's always, I have a hard time getting past her not supporting Sanders.
Yeah,
I know that's petty. Yeah, I have a hard time getting over that. Also, the Standing Rock thing, because it feels like there are people getting crushed out there. And you have this, you want them to vote for you, and you want them to stand up for you. And in this moment, you let them down. I mean, that's really the way I saw this. And everybody who cared about this issue. When this took place, I remember my wife cried when she watched this stuff with Standing Rock. And she is one of those people who don't really care about she gets annoyed with me even talking about politics. And when she heard that Trump got in office and crushed the Standing Rock thing, she cried over that. Like, she was bothered by it. She could see it for herself that what was taking place. And so you have Elizabeth Warren who's like, give me your vote, give me your vote, give me your money. It's like, yeah, but what, you point to those things. Those things matter. But the same thing, you look at her domestic policy and you're like, yeah, I like her domestic policy. I like that stuff.
Policy is incredible. Breaking up Amazon, Facebook, and Google, that is so necessary. Her public housing policy is the best public housing policy in the history of public housing. The student, I think she should forgive all 1.5 trillion. I think that would be, or any president should, that would be the biggest stimulus to ever hit the American economy ever.
But
I mean,
into the economy,
be able to afford to start, a business, to buy a home, to get married, to start spending in the economy. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the fact that our government profits, they get $46 billion a year in interest from student loans. I mean, not only should the government not be making money off of student loans, the government should, as we know, should pay for free college for everybody,
I gotta be honest, I don't quite get the argument opposing that, even though people make the arguments all the time. It's like, why would you want your kids to have, why would you want that debt on your kids? Does a well-educated population benefit the society? The answer, of course, is yes. I mean, of course. And then it's like, then why are we punishing kids for going to school? I don't get that argument at all.
Yeah.
I don't get that argument.
All right.
The Elizabeth Warren thing, one last thing on Warren. What is her foreign policy? I got to be honest, I don't fully know what her foreign policy would be. I'm going to hear her talk about domestic issues.
I don't think she knows what her foreign policy is either. I mean, that's the problem. She never talks about foreign policy. And
how do you pay for it? And this gets to the Tulsi Gabbard argument. How do you pay for all of this other stuff? Like, take the MMT stuff off. And I know some people might be like, oh, dude, why are you hitting my MMT? Because nobody knows what it is. So even if I may agree with you on the principles of stuff, you're stuck in this quagmire of trying to explain that to the American audience, which I guarantee you, whatever Republican that you're running against is going to eat you alive.
Yeah. Because
even in stuff that's honest doesn't necessarily mean you can be castigated for it. It's part of the reason, they take certain foreign policy stuff. And so how is she paying for this stuff? And she's like, we're going to get a wealth tax. We're going to get all these things through. Great. How do you put through your policy proposals if you're not willing to do the thing that's needed and cut the military budget? We're paying over $1 trillion a year for the military budget. How are you doing this stuff? That's my, I don't know what her foreign policy is.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, Bernie's still my candidate. I mean, there's not.
No, I'm not hitting you. No, don't misunderstand me. I'm not hitting you on this. I just
feel like we should give credit where credit is due. And when someone makes a good policy, this is what I hate about social media. When someone makes a good policy and I commend it, then all of a sudden, they got to bring up every argument in the sun. Standing Rock, she didn't endorse Bernie, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's horrible. We have to throw her to the wolves.
I'm not hitting her on, I guess I'm
not you. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying me. And like today, for instance, Bernie did this great thing about the Iran war. He spoke to the people on Twitter. And he went on for a couple minutes about why we cannot get in. And he says, we have to fight. And I'm waiting for the call to action. I'm waiting for it. Because as an activist, I always want to have something for the person to do at the end of it. Call your congressman right now and tell him, and they put up a visual. Here's the number to reach the, Congress building, whatever they call it, the Rayburn building, the Cannon building, and call your congressman and say, we do not support because they have to record every call they get. And if Bernie Sanders does a video and it's seen by, tens of thousands of people, and tens of thousands of people go to their phones, I mean, the YouTubers know how to do this. I remember when Mike Figueredo and Kyle Kalinske, when I did my thing trying to get Brad Sherman and Linda Sanchez to sign on to Medicare for All. I think it was Kyle Kulinski gets on the phone and he's calling Linda Sanchez's office right there on the line and tells everybody to call. This was on a Friday. By Monday, because she gave this bullshit answer at a town hall. And the person who in Long Beach who was live streaming it, tagged me, and I'm commenting. I'm like, ask her about this, and she gave this bullshit answer. And I said, bullshit answer. And she goes, well, Lauren Steiner says, and she's like, no, we have to save the ACA, blah, blah, blah. So Kyle Kulinski got a hold of this. He didn't even know who I was. And he says, activist Lauren Steiner asked this corporate shill. And then by Monday, the woman changes her, mind, and she co-sponsors Medicare for All.
No way.
Yes, way. And so that's like, if the YouTubers who are used to speaking to the people out there in TV land know how to get people to take an action, Bernie Sanders needs to do it also. Here's the number, call Congress, tell them you do not want a war with Iran, right?
Wow. And you're right. He can do that. He has his own channel at this point. Bernie Sanders is a rock star on Facebook and YouTube. Yeah.
And now he did this thing direct to Twitter. So, I mean, he's using all the mechanisms.
I don't blame him on this one. I am worried about this. I'm worried only because people are not, and they should be. Like it's John Bolton has taken this policy of we're going to squeeze Iran to the hilt. But Iran already knows that John Bolton's policy is we're going to squeeze Iran to the hilt. You can look at either British television, French television, American television. They're talking about it almost in the same way. Well, John Bolton is trying to squeeze Iran, but they know that Donald Trump doesn't want a war. However, what Trump wants and what John Bolton wants are two very different things. And if John Bolton gets the opportunity, hey, we have intelligence that XYZ took place, Donald Trump would, his wants would not matter one iota in that moment. Just like in Syria. Donald Trump wanted to get those troops out of Syria from the day he got in office. And he kept saying, I want to get them out of Syria. I want to get them out of Syria. People freaked out. Oh, the president he's being controlled by Putin. Do you know the wild part? There was,
and then don't forget, and then after he tweeted that, there was another chemical attack.
Yes.
God is gassing his own people. Another false flag, right?
Mine, after having like 90% of the territory back.
The only one who reported on that was that phony humanitarian group, the White Helmets.
Yes, right.
Working with the Al-Nusra Front.
Yes.
Who ended up getting like the Netflix, they had the Netflix thing.
Had a Netflix show.
I mean, unbelievable. And then fucking Nicholas Kristof from the New York Times, who I thought knew better, says they got another award a couple of weeks ago, and he's tweeting out how wonderful that is. And I'm like, I'm shocked.
That's amazing. These guys were out there at the terrorist locations. And not just at the terrorist locations. When that chemical weapon strike popped off and Mattis was being asked by Tulsi Gabbard, of all people, she asked him a very basic question that I had been racking my brain with since getting into politics. Like when I started paying attention to history and that stuff. She says, how are you doing this? Like ultimately, what legal authority are you guys using to do this? You guys seem to be planning on a war or a bombing strike. What are you using first? And also, what is the evidence for this? And he's like, well, it's kind of complicated. And she's like, well, sir, it's not really complicated. It's illegal. He even makes the point of, well, Obama had a difficult time with this particular question too, because, the military force thing didn't really apply to. Yeah, it's illegal. What you're doing is illegal. And you're right. Immediately after Trump goes out and says, I want to take the troops out. And all these people freaked out. All of a sudden you had a strike. Mind you, Trump didn't even wait for the evidence of the strike because there wasn't none. He just fired a missile. But this is kind of my point with the Iran thing. It doesn't really matter if there's evidence for it. The Donald Trump's hand is going to be compelled just by virtue of something taking place. The reality doesn't really matter all that much in this case. Oh, one of our allies said this. All of these allies,
I understand what you're saying, but we have to create a prophylactic, if that's the right word, or peremptory anti-war movement about this thing.
Yes.
We know that we've seen this movie a million times. We know what's coming. I'm so sick of people wringing their hands about Iraq. We have the next Iraq right in front of our eyes. We need to stop it. And if the left does not rise up, then I'm done. I'm like seriously done with activism because
Why does the left have to rise up? And this is interesting to me. Wait, because you could say that the left has almost a cosmic responsibility to deal with issues of poverty and of homelessness and those type of things. Essentially, the conscience of the nation of sorts. And so I agree with you. You know, we're wired in a particular way. But the entire nation, 300 and some million of us, watched the United States been taken to war, where we killed 1 million people, and we've been in war for 18 years. The entire nation watched that. You know, like that wasn't just the anti-war activists. That was literally the entire nation. The entire nation watched us wipe 1 million people off the face of the earth. They watched us destroy and decimate that population. And that entire nation, who after watching that, didn't care. And then moved on to this being Iran now. And that entire nation again looks at this with this kind of, meh.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I've been saying this for decades, we need to reinstate the draft. We just need to reinstate the draft because right now it's just poor people that are going off to fight and die. And they're doing it because there's no jobs left wherever they're coming from. They don't have a college education. They can't get a specialized job. They want to go so they can get the college education paid for. And it's employment is all it is. But when you have a draft and you force everyone to have to serve, if you're so strong about saving democracy, they're not even a threat to us. These countries where we were going, they make them sound like they're a threat with the 9/11 or whatnot, but it's just a joke. I mean, Iran is no fucking threat to us. They're a threat to Israel.
Yes.
And that's who we're listening to right now. But I gotta go because I have to go somewhere tonight. But we could talk for hours. You're fantastic.
Of course. I appreciate you coming on to the show. Please tell people where they can find your work.
I will. I will be posting this as soon as we hang up.
No. So tell people Robust Opposition on YouTube.
Oh, my show. Oh,
Yes.
Well, okay. So I'm on YouTube at Lauren from LA. You can put into YouTube /Lauren from LA. I'm on Twitter at Lauren_Steiner. And my Facebook page is lauren.steiner.la. And I do my show live on Facebook, usually 1 or 2 nights a week at 7 p.m. And the night is flexible. I know it'd be better if I had a standard night and people could be must-see TV.
You're talking to my audience, by the way. I do shows at 2 a.m. at times. So they're not going to hit you for that.
Yeah.
They're not going to hit you on that one.
Yeah, and I focus on organizing and activism, and I do a lot of stuff of what happens in Los Angeles, what happens in the state of California. A couple weeks ago, I went up to Sacramento for Lobby Day, and I was following the public banking group and the people trying to stop the excessive force of the police and the people trying to stop charter school expansion. I picked a few issues that I organized on, and I followed them around as they lobbied different legislators, because I feel like it's very important that we focus on legislation and not just doing protest in the streets, because Martin Luther King understood this. He was out there, sitting in at the lunch counters and spending time in the jails and doing all that dramatic stuff. But at the same time, they were also pressuring Johnson to get the Voting Rights Act passed. So we need to make sure that we're not just, making noise, that we actually have bills to back us up. And so I try to focus on that kind of organizing, and you can call me a reformist if you want. But I believe coming out of Occupy in what they call a diversity of tactics, where we do reform, which is legislation, revolution, which is, taking over shit, chaining our bodies to the fracking rigs. I was arrested for covering the Poor People's Campaign because they tried to stop me from live streaming. And I made a split decision. You remember that.
I watched that video. Yes. You're like, take me to jail. I was like, wow. Wow.
Construction, creating the kind of world that we want to see, So worker-owned co-ops, public banks, solar, people that are doing experiments with solar or other type of renewable energy. We have to cover it all. And it's just basically robust opposition, the opposition to the status quo in whatever form it takes. So that's the theory of my show.
Lauren, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You always are welcome to the channel. So
Thank you so much. I love talking to you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
All right, guys, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy this content, you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting it through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you. If it's tonight, I'm dead tired. It may be chess, but anything else is probably going to be for politics tomorrow. God, I don't even know if that's true. There's like, yeah, I don't know if that's true. There's like 3 items. The Bill Barr thing was big. The Bill Barr thing was big. Bill Barr is looking into the origins of the Russiagate thing, and he's choosing a prosecutor. I think the guy's name is Durham, John Durham or something. Supposedly apolitical. Watching media's response to this is weird and satisfying because they're more freaked out by this. And it's like, why are you freaked out by this? If you thought the regular investigation was necessary, why don't you think investigation into how the conspiracy theory almost took down a president is not? Also, why are you assuming that the Democratic Party has its hands clean in this? Meaning that was a party in power. That party in power was spying on the president or a campaign of another party that was trying to take power. Shouldn't it be, shouldn't we know that that was legit? Why are we assuming that that was legit? And I think that's an odd assumption to make, considering for the last 3 years, the assumption has been that the president of the United States was working with Vladimir Putin, which was found to be comically false. So, not to mention, it's coming out that the FBI knew it was false. They knew it. Meaning they knew that Christopher Steele was in it for the Democratic Party. They knew that he was out there trying to push the story into the mainstream press before Election Day because he wanted it to impact the polls in America. If we're looking for foreign influence in our elections, I think we're looking at the wrong party. So I will leave this here, and that doesn't even touch Ukrainian stuff. So there is, I don't know. Yeah, tonight's probably going to be chess. But we'll see. I'll talk to you guys in a few. Thanks all.